Imagine a throne room waking to petitions that never end, a king who can end the misery with a single gesture but chooses to weigh each mercy as if it were a blade. Louis IX sits at the heart of the realm, not as an idol of triumph but as a conduit of impossible choices. The day begins with cries for justice and relief, the air thick with incense and the murmured pleas of widows and traders alike. He moves through the crowd with a measured calm, every gesture a calculation between mercy and order, every decision a seed planted in a field that will yield both relief and consequence. In his mind the law is iron and the heart is velvet, a paradox that follows him like a second shadow. He wears the crown not as an ornament but as a responsibility that knows no pause, no retreat, no fully safe harbor. Outside the palace, the city thrums with the rhythm of a kingdom widening yet never free, and inside, the king attempts to temper zeal with restraint, mercy with mandate, faith with the hard arithmetic of a realm that must endure even when mercy costs more than it gives. The road to grand purpose winds through mud and campfire smoke, and Louis IX wears the mantle of justice rather than the gleam of conquest. The crusade he leads is not a triumph march but a careful balance of faith and consequence. He studies maps stained with ink and blood, listening to advisors who remind him that victory wears many faces and sometimes demands the slow shaping of laws that outlive the moment of triumph. He understands that a single mercy can invite a flood of claims, and a hard sentence can drive fear into the bones of a people who long for safety more than glory. In the tent where banners flutter, the king searches for a path that holds the sacred flame without poisoning the homeland he vows to protect. The weight of destiny presses down, and with each ceremonial oath he takes, the quiet realization settles that leadership is a long loneliness dressed in ceremonial robes and public prayers. Mother and king share a complicated script written before the boy fully understood the weight of a lineage. Blanche of Castile, regent and guardian, tutors the court in discipline even as she guides her son toward mercy, reminding him that power blossoms most when it serves the weak. Yet the structure of the realm wants more than mercy. It wants heirs, treaties, and a realm that can be inherited without fracture. The Queen Mother stands at the hinge between old feudal loyalties and a crown that demands new promises, and Louis carries her lessons like a shield and a burden. He seeks a loving partnership with Margaret of Provence, a wife who can weave diplomacy into daily life. But even in alliance there is strategy, and strategy encroaches on trust. In private quarters the king struggles to reconcile a pious duty with a father's fear of failing the line, and the family becomes both his sanctuary and his most exacting test. The tumult of court life never quite reaches the solitude that sits with a king alone on a balcony overlooking a sleeping city. Louis IX carries the burden of decisions that will shape harvests, laws, and the souls of his subjects. He is surrounded by ceremony yet far from intimacy, a man whose moral compass must be recalibrated in the quiet hours when the world reduces to a single breath and the sense of responsibility becomes a hush in the chest. He seeks counsel in the quiet with trusted clerics, and though sympathy circulates in the chamber, friendship is measured, never reckless. The crown feels heavier when the bells fall silent and the stars come out, because leadership is not only a test of prudence but a test of how deeply one can bear the loneliness that follows duty. In the stillness, the king wonders whether joy can exist within a life framed by piety and order, or if happiness must always be a memory pressed into a ledger of sacrifice. Prosperity recedes while the realm grows hungry, and the king must translate mercy into sustenance. Taxation, rations, and relief programs become a daily arithmetic that bleeds into every corner of life. Louis IX walks through markets where the price of bread bites hard, and the faces of merchants and peasants blur into a single chorus of need. He cannot conjure abundance from thin air, yet he insists on a system that distributes mercy more than fear, a paradox that makes the pastors cautious and the stewards watchful. The throne becomes a courtroom where the justice of the realm is weighed not only in sentences but in the number of loaves that reach the table. In private, the king grapples with the knowledge that mercy without sufficiency is a fragile grace, a gift that can be seen as weakness by rivals and as mercy by the faithful. The moral temperature of the kingdom drops as famine sharpens the eyes of the hungry, and Louis carries that chill like a cloak that keeps out despair but cannot keep out doubt. Faith and campaign collide in a theater of intrigue and warfare as Louis IX moves toward a fortress that guards a line between pious obligation and pragmatic survival. The king makes decisions with a steadiness born of prayer and habit, a man who can still feel the pull of home while stepping into the heat of battle. He negotiates with clerics and kings, promising mercy to allies and justice to enemies, knowing that every alliance is a thread that can snap under pressure. The crusade becomes a test of character as much as a campaign of arms, and the paradox emerges in plain sight. A ruler who wants to spare the innocent sometimes must wield a sword to protect them. As banners rise and the psalms float through the air, Louis IX walks a line between devotion and the dangerous glamour of power, a line that cuts both ways for the man who cannot be easily weighed on a single measure. The old orders fray as the king nears the end of a life given to the realm. He dies as both saint and strategist in a world that will remember him in fragments rather than as a full balance of mercy and power. His law codes outlive his gaze, hospitals and courts linked to his name, yet the empire that bore his crest does not endure with the same certitude. Enemies linger, rivals resent the ease with which mercy was deployed against fear, and the memory of a king who prayed as he led sometimes outshines the actual stability he was able to secure. The paradox crystallizes, a life spent shaping a nation that would outgrow its debts to him, a legacy that feels immortal in name and fragile in practice. The crown remains heavy, not because of its gold but because it commands a past that cannot easily be replayed in the present. In the final reflection, the question lingers like a scent in a church choir loft. Was the life of Louis IX worth the price paid in mercy, faith, and steel? Or did the crown demand more than it could responsibly offer? The king who sought to bind justice to the sword did so at the cost of solitude, family strain, and a future that would not fully repay him. Yet the moral world created around him continues to shape the realm he left behind, a testament to a paradox that resonates through centuries. The viewer is left to weigh the beauty of his devout intentions against the toll exacted by unrelenting duty, to ask whether there could have been a way to savor peace while carrying the weight of kingship. The answer remains ambiguous, a question that invites contemplation of mercy without massacre and power without prison. Was the life of St. Louis a blessing or a burden, and could he have found a path to happiness within a crown that seemed to demand everything without giving much in return?